Per request, I'm going to do a quick Sump 101. Seems to be a lot of misconceptions, generally by people who don't have sumps, fearing that they're going to overflow if the power goes out. This is a 125 with my African tank. It's a 20-gallon long DIY sump I threw together some time ago. I turn the power off to the pumps every night when I feed. A properly designed sump will not ever overflow. So basic premise is water overflows through that weir. This is a reef tank setup, so it's got the built-in overflow weir. Works the same whether you've got a hang-on back or whatever style overflow. An overflow is an overflow. They all do the same thing. It's just different styles. So there's the overflow DIY standpipe. So that's the water level in the overflow. Goes down through there into the sump. The pump on the other end of the sump that returns it through that green line, which goes into that small line there, then returns back to the tank with that. This is a Jabo DCT 8000, I believe. It's a pump that's in there with that 1-inch line and a head loss cranked all the way up. It'll do just over 1,000 gallons per hour. I usually run at about 70%. All right, so the sump, as I said, it's a 20 long. It's about as simple as you can get. There are simpler versions that you can make with the tower of drawers from the dollar store and whatnot, but this is all self-contained. I can put a lid on it, keeps my humidity and heat in. And the 20 long, the baffles are made out of 1/4-inch plexi. You can use plexi, you don't have to use glass. Under this configuration, there's almost no pressure between these chambers, so it's just plexi that's been siliconed in place. Got some egg crate down there. So the water comes in here, goes through a layer of polyfill, and then I got 2 layers of sponges here. Goes underneath this baffle, comes up in between, overflows into this chamber. This chamber typically would be like a refugium if you wanted to put plants or whatnot that you couldn't have in the tank because your asshole cichlids tear them up. I've got just K1 media in there because it's ridiculously overkill. Flows under this baffle, out here, and then the pump is actually down in there, buried in amongst all that media. That end chamber alone has got 12 pounds of ceramic media. 12 pounds. For reference, an FX6, which is running this 75, which is running that 90, which is running that 90. An FX6, you can maybe get 3 pounds of media. Maybe. My 304Bs, which are running that tank, which are running that tank, there's a couple more around here. I can get about 5.5 to 6 pounds of media in a 304B. That chamber alone has got 12 pounds of media. Do I need 12 pounds? No. But when I go to start up another tank or another filter, I don't cycle anything. I grab a couple bags of that perfectly cycled media out of there, I throw it in the new filter, and I'm done. That's it. Cycled. That's, like I said, moving bed. I run moving beds in my ponds, big 55-gallon fluidized beds. So having this in here, when I start my pond up in the spring, I'll yank this out of here, throw it in my barrels, and it starts my cycle off in my pond. It's just immense overkill, and I don't need it, but the water's about as clear as you can get. So, basic sump. Overflows into here, pumps back out. The way your water level works is that overflow needs to be able to move more water than this pump ever will. The only way you're going to get an overflow is if your pump drains this sump, pumps it up here before that return can dump it back into the sump. Right now, this pump's running at about 800 gallons an hour. This overflow, typically these big corner overflows, or if you've got a peninsula tank like that with the overflow in the end, or if you have a dual corner, they'll easily move 12 to 1500 gallons an hour. I said this one's running about 3/4 of its capacity, and it's not even remotely taxed. My pump controller, I'm going to turn it all the way up just to give you an idea. So when I turn that all the way up, you can watch this water level drop. So what it's doing is it's pumping more water out of the sump up into the tank. As it pumps the water into the tank, it takes the tank a little while to equalize and then return the overflow over. So you can see that water level dropped maybe another 1/2 inch. You can also see that this is now way more water. Let me pull the lid off down here so you can see. So that's the water now returning to the sump. Now, see where that water level is at? You can see it in here. You got 3 inches from the top here, 4 inches from the top there, 5 inches from the top here. It's the natural progression. You can see the water overflowing in between the chambers. Now, I'm going to turn this pump off. I go into feeding mode, stops the pump completely. Now watch my water level in here. You'll see this is going to come to a stop as the tank water level balances out. You can see it raising up. Almost stopped. And done except for a few bubbles. This is still moving in here because I've got a small little power head in there just to keep that moving bed moving at all times. So, completely stopped. I got a good inch of water level between. Actually, you can see the water in the pipe. The return pipe is back feeding now. So this is static mode. By static mode, I mean nothing's running. There's no water pumping. This is basically simulating a power outage. No water coming through the overflow. That's it. It's done. That is the static water level of the tank. It's where it will drain to and stop. Now, as long as this sump is not overflowing, that's as full as anything is ever going to get. The key is when I do my water changes, all the pumps are turned off. I'll fill my tank up, and I'll watch this. I fill this to about 1 inch from the top. 1 inch on a 20-gallon tank, probably another 1.5 gallons of water would have to miraculously come from somewhere to go in there. Now, the only way that could happen is if one of these seals on this overflow weir were to critically fail. Or if this standpipe were to fail. If the standpipe fails, the only water that's going down into the sump is the little bit that's in this chamber back here. So, right now, there's your power outage. Pump's turned off. Everything is stabilized. Now, if I turn the pump back on, you can watch the water level in the sump drop down as it starts pumping it back up into the tank. And you'll see the return start to liven up here. These Jabo DCT pumps are all 12 volt soft start, so when you turn it on, it doesn't just start blasting. They start off slow and gradually ramp up. If you're going to build a sump, I highly recommend them. They typically last me years and years and years, and they just work. And they're quiet. They've never had a problem with them. So you can see this water level now dropping down to where it will be during its running level. And there you go, right about there is where it's going to sit. Now, this is moving just over 1,000 gallons an hour, which means it's cycling this tank about 8 times an hour. Over here you can see the return, the overflow. So that's it. No overflowing, no mess, ever. Like I said, I turn the power off every night when I feed them. Otherwise, with 1,000 gallons of turnover, anything on the surface just gets sucked into that return, and they wouldn't stand a chance. There you have it. This sump, 20 gallon long. You can pick them up on sale for $20. A decent sized pump like that's probably going to run you about $80, so you're $100 into it. A couple pieces of plexiglass, $10, $15 at Home Depot, tube of caulk, whatever media you choose. You're going to have to buy media regardless of what filter you're running, so I really don't consider that an additional cost to a sump. So realistically, you can put this sump together for about $150, which you can't touch an FX6, an FX4, an FFN. I don't think you could even touch a 406 for $150. And once a week, the only thing I do is I change that layer of polyfill. When I do my water changes, I'll pull that piece of polyfill out, throw a new piece of polyfill in, and about once every 2 months, I'll actually pull those sponges out and clean them. My media down there, I'll rinse it out in tank water maybe once a year. So I mean, maintenance on this sump is literally changing out that piece of polyfill, which you can do in under a minute if you're really slacking off. So if you've got a space under a tank, a sump is the way to go, because these are good filters. Do I think they're worth what they get for them? Absolutely not. I've got 3 of these, 3 FX6s. I think I've got 8 304Bs. I got a couple smaller Fluvels, the 406s. I got HOBs. Here's an FX6. Here's an FX6 that's running into a marine setup overflow. It works on this 90 gallon, but I don't know that I would trust filtering much more than 90 gallons. Same thing on this tank. This is a marine setup overflow. And you can see back in there. That's also on, yep, dark. There's an FX6 in there too. It's a 704B. There's a 304B back there. So, I run everything, as long as it works. So, there's your Sump 101. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Anybody can build one of these in an evening for $150. And like I said, maintenance is 5 minutes a week at best, and they just work. Alright, I'm out.